In this video, I'm going to be explaining the 3 things that this school that I went to for 14 years didn't teach me. The first thing that I learned is that cramming does not work in the slightest. Now, essentially in Chouiefat, particularly from 7th grade to 12th grade, literally until you graduate, you have an exam, almost 1 or 2 exams every single day, basically. And what this encourages is that since you have lots of varied subjects, and usually you're recommended to study or you're required to study from this source or from this paper or from this sheet or from that past paper, essentially what happens is you think to yourself, oh, if I study the night before the exam, this is going to work. Or sometimes even, I remember some people like myself, but even plenty of others would either revise or literally like start studying during the break, and they wouldn't even study the night before. So what this encourages, especially once you enter university, is that you think to yourself that studying for 1 hour before is going to be amazing, and you're just gonna be like extremely focused, and you're not gonna overthink, you're not gonna be negative, you're not gonna think to yourself that, oh yeah, maybe something could happen tomorrow or during this night, so maybe I should study beforehand. What this happens, then you're just totally lost. So what happens here is that since there's so much material like I explained, you're going to just procrastinate till literally the night before. And then once you enter university, you're going to be like, oh wow, maybe this 2,000 word lab report, I probably shouldn't have started just 3 nights before, 1 night before. So what happens here, like I explained, you really need to just organize yourself. You can't just think to yourself, okay, I'll just study this entire night just for this one exam, and then you probably like just texting your friends for half the night anyway. Like, especially in uni, you have to really be organized. 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. you do this subject, then maybe 7 to 7:30 a half an hour breaks, and 7:30 to 8:30 another 1 hour of studying a second subject. Like, it gets really taxing on your head once you only think to yourself that this Chouiefat system is applicable to all things in life, when it's obviously not the case. Schools in general, but particularly Chouiefat, have such a different system compared to university, and it makes it really hard to adjust to once you get older and enter uni. The second thing that I learned from Chouiefat, that the school itself didn't teach me, ironically enough, is that the social circle that you have is not everything in the slightest. Now, my argument with this is that the funny person that you're sitting next to for about a year, not even a year, let's say 8 months, 7 months, because obviously you're not going to school every single day of the week, you're going to think to yourself that these people have a lot to contribute to you, or that you have a lot in common with them, or you desire to have a lot in common with them. And then you think to yourself, especially by the time you graduate, and let alone onwards, when most people travel to different countries and you don't keep in touch with them and you delete social media, like in my case, which I made some videos about, you think to yourself that these people have a lot in common with you and that you're a close family. And the majority of the time, it's not at all the case. This doesn't mean that you don't have good relationships with everyone. I hopefully like to think that I ended off on a good note with most of the classmates I graduated with. But it just doesn't mean that you have to people please, or to make people like you, or to post a certain thing or watch that show or listen to that song just because you might get some more attention. Because you can have an amazing social life with your neighbors, with extended family, with members of a club or a sport. You don't have to have a specifically amazing, wonderful, fantastic life at school and have 1,000 followers and 400 likes per post. It's not that meaningful, and it doesn't matter as much as how much you're actually contributing to people around you that like you more and value you more. Because these trends that especially take place in school constantly fluctuate and change over time, and everybody's going to differ, everybody's going to go to this country or that country, people are going to just consider different things, different influences, different expectations, and everyone's not going to be the same during high school and afterwards. And some people even just don't be friends from high school or continue their relationships from high school until onwards. And people can become totally different adults when they're 20 or 25 compared to when they were 16, 17, 18. So it really just depends on how much you want to risk your entire life or a lot of your experiences just about watching this thing, doing that thing, just because other people are doing it, and just because everyone else is like, yo, you have to watch this thing, and then you feel left out because you don't have as much of an interest in that thing or project or show or whatever it may be. The third thing that I learned from Chouiefat is that you have to take care of yourself in a holistic approach, all things of life. I remember in 11th grade, we were online. This was in early 2021. So I was 11th grade, and I had a video call with my other classmates. So usually when we have to do an online exam at the time, we had to set up a Microsoft Teams call, and there would be an invigilator from literally from school, like a staff member from school, who would watch us, and we would have our cameras on so that they could tell that we weren't cheating, even though literally everyone was. But that's besides the point. And I remember that day, the exams were not working. And I remember the school's website was being extremely slow, because usually the school's website like, shuts down like once every few weeks, and it's a mess. So this happened that time, especially at the time because we were all online, so the servers were extremely buggy. And I remember there were one or two girls, and they were complaining about how the website was being really slow, just like we were, like most other normal students. And then it would take minutes, literally, from one part of the website to another, and everybody was probably just texting and so on. I forgot what I was doing, to be honest. But essentially, once we reached the exam, finally we started, there were these one or two girls that were still complaining about how they couldn't enter the exam. And these were like really highly achieved academic students, if that's even the way. They got really good grades 99% of the time. They were very, very serious about schoolwork. And it made me think, because as far as I could tell, I wasn't close to them, but it felt like they didn't have many pursuits or many hobbies outside of school, and they like really, really focused on this traditional education system on schoolwork and exams and whatnot. And I kept thinking to myself, like, how could you sacrifice so much of your time on something temporary and not as worth it? Of course, this doesn't mean that just, fail school and drop out and, don't make anything else and just, sit in your mom's basement. But what I'm saying here is that I felt a bit bad that here we are on an online video call, everybody's cheating their exams, everybody's not caring in the slightest. And then you have these two girls who are actually wanting to do something, but at such a disadvantage, at such a horrific time, and such a disadvantaged time, that they were trying to study hard, and this education system, this school, was throwing them along outside the window. And usually we had keyboards like this and posters like this, and it was just like really, really shocking, like how much school would not give in that much attention to these exams and these issues and whatnot. And the thing is, what I thought of was that I really need to take care of my physique, of my mental health, of my relationships, and of course my schoolwork. You have to include everything. You can't just focus on schoolwork and ditch out the relationships and sit in your room the whole day alone. So that was what I was thinking of, because I saw people around me that literally would like cry before or after exams, and people that would just constantly overstress and over worry, particularly from the first point I brought up in the start of this video. And it felt bad to see that some people had no idea what to do for their mental health or their spiritual health or the physical health. And some people literally would just, I remember so well, people would just study in the libraries alone. It was a bit of a down vibe, if that makes sense. So really take care of yourself in a holistic aspect. Don't ignore your spirituality. Don't ignore your mental health. Don't ignore your parents. Don't ignore your family. Just really try to pinpoint every aspect that you're slacking in. Maybe if your grades are literally garbage, okay, yeah, maybe take, a day off from hanging out with your friends or something. But if you really have the time, if you really have the patience, tackle every single area of your life, because school's not going to teach you that. Your parents might not teach you this. You really just have to learn from experience, learn from the internet, go and research, go closer to religion, do something that will give you more of a guide to tackling this crazy thing called school, and an even crazier thing in the future called life.